We work hard to bring you immersive stories that blend deep science fiction with heart, suspense, and HFY energy. If you enjoy this story, leave a like, comment your favorite moment, and subscribe for more powerful sci-fi storytelling. And stay tuned, because the end will leave you breathless. The room smelled like ozone, polished steel, and polite condescension. Captain Lyra Tess of the Terran Diplomatic Corps stood at the center of the Galactic Council's central forum, her boots echoing faintly on the polished obsidian floor. 37 alien species watched her with curiosity, skepticism, and in some cases, mild amusement. The question had been innocent enough, at least on the surface. Counselor Vexistar of the Voloth Dominion had leaned forward, his mandibles twitching with curiosity. "Terran," he had said, his voice like gravel dragged across glass, "your world is infamous for its biological chaos. We have classified 438 deadly species on Earth. But tell us, what is your planet's true apex predator?" Some species had leaned forward, intrigued. Others rolled their compound eyes or fluttered translucent membranes in what passed for boredom. This wasn't the first time an upstart planet tried to talk itself up with tales of danger. Lyra had smiled then, not politely, not diplomatically, but the kind of smile that suggests a secret, one you probably don't want to learn. She raised a finger and pointed to herself. There was silence for a heartbeat, then laughter. Clicking, trilling, chittering alien laughter. Not mocking exactly, just disbelief. After all, humans were soft-skinned bipeds. They had no venom, no exoskeleton, no wings or natural energy projection. Compared to the shockhounds of Trilax 4 or the void stalkers of Zikar Prime, they were underwhelming. "You misunderstand the question," Counselor Vextar said with a flick of his claws. "We asked about a biological apex predator, not the most emotionally volatile." Lyra didn't flinch. She tapped her wrist console, and behind her, the screen lit up. Images flickered into place. A polar bear dragging a half-ton seal across the ice, an orca coordinating with its pod to beach hunt seals, a bald eagle stooping from 10,000 feet, talons extended. Then, a woman in camo gear lying prone in the grass, exhaling steadily as she squeezed the trigger of a precision rifle. The seal, the prey, the predator, and the species that hunted them all. "Let me rephrase," Lyra said, her voice calm. "Earth has many apex predators, but we're the only one that outwitted them all, tamed them, weaponized them, named them Fluffy." More chuckles, more unease. She swiped again. Now came images of historical warfare. Humans clad in furs taking down mammoths, medieval knights covered in steel, aircraft screaming across the sky, satellites targeting coordinates with eerie precision, drones, nuclear tests, starships. We're the only predator that turned survival into a strategy game, the only species that built its way off-world, just to look for more things to challenge. A pause. Then she said it. "We didn't just survive Earth, we made it ours. And now we're looking at the stars the same way our ancestors looked at the horizon." And then she leaned in, just slightly, the way a wolf might at the edge of the tree line. "If you're lucky, we'll remain curious, not hungry." No one laughed this time. The silence lasted longer than it should have, and when the council resumed its agenda, the tone had shifted. Records would later show that 3 species updated their diplomatic protocols for dealing with humans. 2 increased surveillance. 1 called for military research into Terran neuropsychology, and Counselor Vexitar, he no longer found humans funny. 3 solar rotations had passed since Captain Lyra Tess's declaration on the council floor. The incident was already being analyzed by think tanks, political strategists, and xenobehavioral specialists across 3 sectors. Most considered it dramatic flair. A few, especially the Zirt Command Directorate, considered it a veiled threat, and one species took it as an invitation. The Zahari were an old race. Built like obsidian beetles with crystalline brain cores and 6 primary limbs, they were known across the galaxy for 2 things: calculated brutality and controlled experiments. So when they requested a demonstration, purely for scientific curiosity, of course, the Terran delegation was wary. But Earth accepted, because Earth always accepts a challenge. The testing arena was a neutral satellite station orbiting a dead moon in the Aureli's fringe. No weapons allowed, no fleet activity. The Zahari called it Observation Chamber 9. To humans, it was just another cold box in space. Inside the chamber, 2 beings stood. Captain Lyra Tess, in standard adaptive terrain gear, armed with nothing more than a hydration pack, a pulse knife, and her own instincts. And across from her, the Zahari's selected representative, a predator. It was 3.2 meters tall, armor-scaled, 4-legged with 2 upper manipulator limbs, and a mouth filled with curved razors. The Zahari called it Specimen K-12. It had been grown for war, sculpted in bioforges, and fed live prey since incubation. It had never lost a hunt. The Zahari considered the match fair. The chamber environment shifted. Suddenly, it was jungle. Dense, humid with artificial gravity and wildlife simulations based on archival Earth environments. Visibility, low. Sound, distorted. The terrain, treacherous. The test had begun. But there was no dramatic clash, no immediate ambush, nothing worthy of a cinematic explosion. Instead, Lyra disappeared. Specimen K-12 stalked, sniffed, and slashed through vegetation. It growled at false echoes and tore apart foliage where no human stood. Hours passed, no kill, no sign of prey. But every hour it grew more agitated. Micro-cuts appeared on its hindquarters. Small punctures, no blood, just irritation. Another hour passed. One eye was damaged, vision impaired. Then, a vibration, a static hum. The beast's rear leg locked. Then its front right limb collapsed entirely. Neurotoxin. The Zahari scrambled behind the observation glass, demanding answers. Their bio-champion convulsed on the ground, clawing at invisible enemies. Only then did Lyra emerge, from above, from the canopy. Ropes of vine. A spike made from broken chamber metal. A single serum-loaded dart launcher crafted from the environment. She stepped lightly down a sloped trunk and walked toward the dying creature with calm detachment. Not cruel, not sadistic, professional. When she looked up at the observation glass, she said only, "You were right to be curious." And then she added, just barely above a whisper, "But you mistook us for hunters." She walked out of the chamber without waiting for their reply. That day, the Zahari erased the term dominant predator from their lexicon when referring to humans. They replaced it with something else. Controlled extinction vector. And for the first time in centuries, the Zahari decided not to run the next experiment. For the Galactic Council, the Zahari incident was uncomfortable. Officially, it was classified as a non-lethal behavioral interaction. Unofficially, half the security analysts at Central Command refused to sleep for 72 hours after reviewing the footage, because in just under 8 hours, one unarmed human had out-strategized a laboratory-engineered apex predator, improvised neurochemical weapons from a simulated environment, and demonstrated a level of patience and cunning that frightened species bred for warfare. But that wasn't the part that kept alien leaders up at night. It was what came after. Lyra Tess didn't return to Earth. She didn't go on a media tour or accept a commendation. She vanished. The Terran Alliance remained silent. And then came the files. They were leaked in fragments. At first it seemed like random chaos. Scans of old Earth biology textbooks, grainy images of surgical diagrams, ethnographic notes on predator behavior, and deep-cut historical records from Earth's pre-spacefaring age. But once analysts began putting it together, a pattern emerged, and the pattern said this: Earth didn't evolve apex predators. Earth evolved things that hunted apex predators, and then evolved past them. The creatures humans feared? Wolves, bears, great white sharks. They were dangerous, but humans didn't just survive them. They shaped them, trained them, studied them, sometimes revered them, but always, humans understood that survival wasn't about being the strongest. It was about being the last one standing. And if that meant burning a forest to flush out a jaguar, they'd burn it. Species across the council started reviewing human records again, this time not just with curiosity, but dread. They found the old footage of firebombs and drones, of cities turned to ash, of operatives with no exit plans, of mothers carrying knives in their boots, of engineers who built life support systems that could double as gas chambers, just in case. It wasn't that humans loved war. It was that humans assumed it, built for it, breathed it like oxygen. Meanwhile, whispers began surfacing. Lyra Tess was no longer on any ship registry. Her military ID had been marked as retired under confidential directive. A new codename started circulating in fringe intelligence circles, Directive Echo. Rumors said she wasn't the only one, that the Zahari weren't the first to ask, and they wouldn't be the last, because once one species finds out what humanity really is, the others start wondering. A small border planet on the edge of Thalkar space, neutral, resource poor, and politically irrelevant, reported an unregistered Terran vessel entering orbit. No weapons active, no distress call, just a simple transmission, broadcast on an open channel in perfect Thalkari dialect. You asked what we fear. We fear what happens when someone laughs while teaching children how to kill us. We fear forgetting who we are. We fear a war we don't see coming, so we come first. Then silence. No landing. No visual contact. But 17 hours later, the Thalkar embassy quietly petitioned to join the Terran Defense Initiative. No terms, no requests, just 5 words. We'd like to survive too. There's a saying among the Draxathi: the predator who doesn't show its teeth is the one you should run from. The Draxathi had teeth, literally and figuratively. Their elite commandos could snap bones with a twitch of their claws. Their scout ships were built to cloak even while discharging weapons. But they had made a mistake. They believed humans didn't have teeth. And so they made contact, not with an olive branch, not with trade, but with intimidation. A delegation of Draxathi envoys landed on Terran Orbital Station Sigma 9. They walked tall, armored and glistening with ceremonial blades and muscle-plated chitin, clearly expecting fear. They were met by a civilian, Lyra Tess, hair tied back, unarmed, sipping coffee from a battered thermos with a sticker that read, "I eat threats for breakfast." When the Draxathi Alpha stepped forward and bared his fangs, she looked him up and down once, then said, "You sure you want to make this your first move?" They didn't back down. Of course not. A week later, the Draxathi's main communication hub suffered a power grid failure. No official weapons were detected. No casualties reported. But every terminal in their capital blinked awake that night with a new background. An old Earth predator, grinning, blood on its teeth. A single word below it, "Hello." And somehow, no one knew how, that image was burned into their backup servers too. The real turning point came when the Galactic Council finally intervened. They demanded that the Terran Alliance clarify its stance on recent psychological warfare activities. Earth responded with a simple message from Ambassador Ren Echevarria. "Our predator didn't ask to be feared. You asked what we were. Now you know. And if you're still asking for a fight, remember, we don't start wars, but we do finish species." The silence that followed was not diplomatic, it was instinctual. Somewhere in the unregulated systems beyond the Orion Arm, rumors spread of a covert human vessel called the Echo Protocol. No official records, no ship class, just a trail of broken warlords, decommissioned fleets, and alliances that suddenly changed their minds. Lyra Tess was aboard, not as captain, not even as operative. As a reminder, the apex predator of Earth was not its fastest, its strongest, or its most venomous. It was the one who waited, the one who learned, the one who walked into the heart of a military species and asked, "Are you sure?" But the Drexathi were only the second mistake. The third, well, that would be far, far worse. Because the next species didn't come in arrogance, they came in fear, and fear makes people desperate. Desperation makes monsters, and makes